Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for Autoline After Hours. Got an interesting show today. We're going to be talking a lot about batteries for electric cars. That's the first half of the show. Second half of the show, we're going to be getting into the news of the week and some of our insights as to what's been going on. But Gary, why don't you introduce the audience to our guests here?
All right, and just so people are not unduly concerned that I'm not asking you a question about some historical fact, we will do that.
We will do that
as the show goes on.
Yes, we will.
So I don't want people to just panic and then drop their computers on the floor and don't get to see the show. So our very special guest is Bob Lee, who heads up LG Energy Solutions here in the United States and perhaps even broader than that. So Bob, welcome. And because you're all about batteries, we brought in Mike Anderson, who is the editor of Battery Technology magazine. So he knows more than John and I put together. So
I doubt that, but it's great to be here.
Thanks, Mike.
I assure you, when it comes to batteries, you definitely do. But so Bob, I mean, what is going on? I mean, just a few years ago, it looked like EVs and electric car batteries were going to be off to the races, and now it's like it hasn't materialized. What do you see going on right now and for the rest of the decade?
Well, so I think, yeah, the movement toward electrification has been very dynamic. So I think 5 years ago, there were very optimistic forecasts. Many of the OEMs came out with strategic plans that targeted 50% plus conversion to EVs by 2030. And I think if you look back at the last couple of years, that conversion didn't happen as nearly as fast as we all expected. I think there are several factors behind that. I think you still have some infrastructure issues in terms of the charging infrastructure to help people feel more comfortable. There's range anxiety issues. So there are a number of different, I think, things that we need to overcome as an industry in order to really unleash. For me, the biggest thing, it really comes down to total cost. So I think if we as an industry put out products that are faster, cheaper, more durable, that's what will really unleash the market. I believe that's what's happened in China now. 2 years ago, the average EV price in China is now already lower than the EV price, the ICE price. And you can see the market has really converted in China. I believe that that's possible in the US and that will happen. But at the end of the day, we as battery makers, we have to make our products lower cost. OEMs need to refine and optimize vehicles so that we can bring down the cost. And I think if we do that, then we'll be able to accelerate. But having even said all of that, I think despite the fact that we haven't grown as fast as what we forecasted, the fact is the market in the US is growing, right? It's growing at 10 to 15% a year, which for most manufacturing industries, that's a pretty robust growth. So I think, when you talk about our slowdown, it's only relative to very aggressive targets that were set several years ago. I mean, we're still growing. We're still trying to ramp up our operations to meet that level of growth. And we're also just planning with our customers to deal with this new reality and make sure that we're right-sizing.
So Bob, give us a sense of your company. I mean, I was surprised when I read that, you have JVs with General Motors, Honda, Hyundai, got contracts with Rivian. I mean, you guys are quite a power in this field. I mean, what's the extent of your business in the US?
So LG's been in the lithium-ion battery industry for over 20 years. We've been invested in this industry going way back till when the first batteries were developed for cell phones and PCs, laptop PCs. This is going back 20, 30 years now. So we've been in this industry a long time. We've been the market leader. We are still the market leader in this industry outside of China. So I think if you look at, the markets where we compete in Europe, in North America, in Asia, we do very well, both with automotive, but also with other, we're one of the largest suppliers to Apple, for example. So we have a very robust portfolio of products. We have market leadership, I think, in all of the markets that we operate in. And I think, as many people know, there's some restrictions in terms of non-Chinese players being able to access the Chinese market. And that's what's, I think, challenged us some in this global market, since our main competitor outside of the markets we live in happen to be bigger than us, just because the Chinese market is so large. We currently work with General Motors, Stellantis, Honda, and Hyundai as a joint venture here in North America. We're the largest supplier to Tesla for their cylindrical batteries. We recently announced some business with Toyota, which is the leading OEM globally. So I think, we've gained the trust of the automotive industry, and we've been very fortunate to do that. I think one of the ironies of some of the challenges in our growth right now is it's actually caused our customers to want to work with us even more, because they want to work with partners that'll be here for a long time, that'll be stable, and that can be, stable over the long run. And so we're one of the few players, I think, customers see in that light. And so we've been able to actually generate even more opportunities with our customers. And I think we're really, grateful for that.
It's a hell of a problem, huh?
Well, we still have a lot of execution to do in North America. We're putting up 8 plants here in North America, 7 in the US, 1 in Canada. And these plants are huge. They're, $4 or $5 billion. I tell people they fit about 80 football fields in terms of the footprint. So these are big operations to get up and running. And I think that's still our main focus. We're very committed to the US market. And despite some of the near-term, policy changes and some of the, I think, the ups and downs in the market, we're still very bullish on the US market in the long run. And we feel that we're going to be the market leader here.
Let's talk specific battery form factors then. You mentioned that you're the largest supplier to Tesla and cylindrical batteries. Where do you see that going? I mean, we're seeing stuff coming out of China that's prismatic, for example. Is there going to be a dominant form? Do you see a trend going one way or the other?
It's still difficult to fully predict. I've been in this industry now off and on for about 15 years. And even 15 years ago, we were talking about pouch and prismatic and cylindrical form factors. And 15 years ago, actually, many people had written off the cylindrical form factor. But the fact is, the global leading player in EVs uses that form factor. And so now it's become kind of a standard. I would say if you look at chemistries, again, there have been many chemistries like LTO, LMO. Now the 2 dominant chemistries are NCM and LFP.
Right.
Again, 15 years ago, many people wrote off LFP and thought that was a inferior technology.
Is LG doing LFP?
So,
Oh, yeah.
So absolutely. So I think now there's a little bit of a reset going on in the market where we're trying to figure out what is the optimal combination of form factor and chemistry for the various different applications. And so on chemistry, we're looking at our normal, very high nickel content batteries, but we have a mid-nickel formula, which is closer to 60% nickel, which we think is a very good balance of cost competitiveness as well as performance. But we do recognize that there is opportunity for LFP for a couple of different applications.
Here in the US specifically?
So we have announced 2 LFP projects so far. We did announce a LFP project here in the US, but that's for the ESS application, energy storage.
The Holland place, right? Yeah.
So we are exploring LFP opportunities with OEMs in the North American market, but I would say that's still in very early stages. Recently, we did announce a LFP partnership with Renault in Europe. So, it's something that we have capability in. Again, 15 years ago, a lot of people thought that did not have enough energy density. So we kind of shelved a lot of our, technology, and now we're bringing it back for certain applications. I think just to close, it's hard to predict everything in the future, but I would say we're trying to maintain certain flexibility in the way we build products, that we can have some combination of interoperability between chemistry and form factor which allows us to have more flexibility in our plants.
So explain. I mean, okay, you
Yeah.
guys make all three types: pouch, cylindrical, prismatic.
We do not make prismatic.
You don't?
Yeah, not yet.
Okay, not yet. Okay. So when you're talking about the chemistry going into the package, okay,
Yes.
what difference does that make? I mean, explain that to me.
So when you talk about these two type of chemistries, NMC and LFP, they have very different energy densities. As I said, NMC tends to have higher energy density. So with LFP, you have to basically have thinner electrodes, have more sheets of cathode and anode material in order to have enough power. In order to do that, you basically, after the coating process, you have a roll press process to squeeze the electrode, and you have to do that in you have to calendar it so that it's much thinner, right? So there are some different nuances in terms of how you manufacture, and then during the formation process, the swelling of the two different chemistries are a little different. So the way you have to have jig formation when you do or jig to hold the cells while you do formation is a little different. So there are some nuances of differences between the two products, just because of the chemistry and the physical characteristic. But as I said, I mean, we want to have some flexibility so we can make LFP into different formats, or NMC into different formats. And I think that level of flexibility right now is important because the market is very dynamic, and I think even our customers are trying to figure out what's the right combination for themselves.
So maybe it's worth talking about the advantage of LFP, since it doesn't have the energy density, although maybe some of your Chinese competitors seem to think they're getting more density into it. But what makes LFP cost? It gives it an advantage for lower priced cars. And I know you mentioned the ESS use of it, which means what, longevity? So help me out here.
So LFP is generally lower cost than NMC for a couple reasons. So the basic metals that go into LFP is lithium, iron, phosphate. So iron is a commodity material that's relatively low cost, right? When you have the NMC, that's a lithium, a nickel, manganese, cobalt oxide. So there's nickel, manganese, and cobalt that go in it, and that's higher cost material compared to iron, and that definitely drives some cost difference. But I think there's another element though, which is that the suppliers that do LFP cathode materials and anode materials, most of them are Chinese players. I think they have huge scale advantages right now over players that are making other materials. And so I think there's yes, I have to acknowledge there's some fundamental cost advantages, but I also think you're comparing an industry that is 10 times the size of another industry that's trying to get there, right? So it's not a quite fair comparison to say it's just higher cost. So there is some cost advantage. I think what I have to acknowledge, a lot of the Chinese players, is they've done a good job of trying to overcome the energy density weakness in the packaging formats, right? So it's not just a cell, but the way they package the cells into the vehicle itself. I think they've done a very good job of minimizing space and making sure that you have a lot more energy in the space that you're given. So they've done a good job of, I think, catching up a lot in those dimensions. But I do think fundamentally NMC is going to have much higher energy density. So when you're looking at applications that need to be lighter, and this is why for automobiles, since the battery has to go with you, it helps to be light. And when you talk about things like a vertical takeoff or drone type of applications, it's even more important, right? That you have this energy density. The reason LFP makes sense for energy storage applications is those things do not have to move; they're stationary, so you don't have to worry about the weight and the volume so much. Right? They can be heavier, they can occupy more space, but you're not carrying it around, you're not moving around, so it's okay, right?
Yeah.
And that's why the LFP formulation really makes sense for the those ESS applications. But when you're talking about having to carry the thing around with you, and the weight that it entails, that's why NMC has been the preferred chemistry by, I would say, most of the global leading OEMs up until now.
How about future chemistries?
Oh.
Sulfur batteries,
Yeah.
sodium
Sodium,
batteries,
yeah.
and then the holy grail that everybody talks about, solid state. What's your evaluation of those?
So I'm also trying to come up to speed on this topic a little bit. I mean, we've definitely done our own research on solid state batteries as a leading battery player. I think everybody is doing some base research. We've also invested in some startup companies that do solid state. So I think solid state is an interesting area to invest into the future. Comes with some real benefits in terms of higher energy density, better safety profile. But I think we still have some technical challenges that have not been overcome. Right? You have instead of having a liquid electrolyte, you have a solid electrolyte layer, and basically the transfer speed of ions across that solid electrolyte is at this point slower in general than through a liquid medium.
Right.
And as a result, you're not able to get the same level of performance on some dimension, and that's what everybody's working on right now. Right? I believe there's been so much investment by both the automakers and the leading battery makers. Let's say ourselves, Panasonic, companies like Tesla, Samsung, that you're going to have this some combination, and CATL as well. You're going to have some combination of the current form factors leading the way until, I don't know, 2030.
Mhm.
I think the programs that are coming out right now for sourcing 5, 6, 10 years from now, I think we can contemplate different form factors and different chemistries. But I think what's going to be in the market, at least for the next 5 years, is primarily set. What I'm seeing right now, the majority of what I'm seeing right now, is still more modest incremental type of innovation. I would say the solid state comes a little bit after that. I'm not, despite the hype, I'm not seeing actual commercial programs of high volume. If you hear of any, let us know.
The number of car companies, EV makers have said, well, it's the end of this year, or maybe it's the beginning of next year, that they're actually starting to produce solid state EV batteries at a production level. But there's a demonstration line at Honda, I think, and things like that. So they say it's coming sooner, but I don't know. We've heard a lot of promises before on that, right? So, I had another question too, which was you talked about the performance challenges of the battery, but there's also a manufacturing challenge too, right?
Yeah.
And that they're just a lot harder to make. So is that?
Yeah, I think what I learned with not only batteries but like display technologies and thin film solar and even some of these very capital intensive process technologies. Manufacturing is the technology.
Yeah.
Right? It's not there's no secret actually. It's just trying to produce it in high volumes across large surface areas in a uniform way. That is the trick. Right? I would say in the past, one might design a consumer electronic product or something, and the design is the real trick, and the manufacturing of it is just a matter of printing it and pushing it out. But
Right.
with things like batteries and solid state batteries, it is the manufacturing that's the challenge.
Mhm.
Trying to scale out and try and coating batteries. I mean, same thing. Like it's very easy to make cell coin cell size batteries, but
Right.
if you're trying to do huge volumes, doing it uniformly so that when you do the roll press, there's no little pumps or empty areas. That sounds simple, but that is the
Right.
the winning technology. Being
Right.
able to
My
do that.
understanding is that yield is the holy grail in
Exactly.
battery manufacturing.
Exactly.
And I've also heard that until you hit 90% yield, your plant doesn't make any money. That but now once you get over 90% yield, boom, you become a money machine, so to speak. Does that sound right? That kind of ratio, 90% to really make a battery plant profitable?
So I would say 90% is a good benchmark. Yield is fundamentally is a very critical target. Without giving away details, I would say all of our plants are operating at a much higher yield, right?
So they're profitable.
Well, not quite. What I was,
Don't get carried away.
Yeah.
some of them are, but my point was this, that 90% used to be a good number a decade ago or some years ago. I would say now we're really challenging our plants to be at a much higher number. So we're expecting our plants to be even north of that after 6 months.
Wow.
Wow, that's
So-
fantastic.
So
Yeah.
the point is, yield is really critical. We really focus on it, and the magic number on profitability is a little bit more complex than that, because there's a lot that has to do with the actual material price and what the original margin was that was calculated into and there's also all sorts of fluctuations in factor costs. So there's a little bit more than just one figure, but of course yield is absolutely important. If you put in all of that material, all of that labor, and you're throwing away 10%,
Yeah.
right? It's
You're
very
throwing
hard
money out
to-
the door. Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
hard to be profitable there.
Bob, let me ask you, you've been around this industry for a while, not just doing batteries and other products. And the number of joint ventures that you have with OEMs, okay, why are they venturing with battery manufacturers? We don't see this in other products that go into vehicles. What's the advantage for them, for you, for both, for the consumer?
So I think the advantage for both is this is a very capital intensive activity. And so as a battery supplier, you need to have some commitment and, in order to make that capital investment, to make that whole business case work out. I think for the OEM's point of view, they want to have certain ownership, optimization, and capability in this space, because it's considered a very important part of their powertrain. So I think that's why there's been a combination of so many joint ventures, because it's very important for both companies. It's a huge financial burden, so sharing that is made sense. And I think that's been we've done more joint ventures than most of the other companies, and we've we think that that's really the best way to hedge the risk with our partner. And we've been very happy with the results.
So the OEM gets a proprietary chemistry and architecture, and that if you were to buy it from another company, it would be different.
I would say that we try to standardize many things across all the plants, just to reduce costs for all of our partners, right? But I would say, there's a fair degree of customization, whether it's size or chemistry, and that's one of the benefits of pouch form factor, is that the OEM can really dictate exactly the parameters of the product that they want to get. So it's you have to consider all of the trade-offs, and even our customers do that, right? Because if there's a certain customization they'd like to have, but it's a unique material or it's a unique characteristic, it's going to increase costs or reduce yield, right? We'll have that discussion with our customer and figure out what's the appropriate product.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of coordination with the joint venture partner on what gets produced. Absolutely.
Battery swapping. We keep seeing more stories coming out of China. NIO is the one that really pioneered it, but now BYD's talking about it. Do you think that's going to happen elsewhere? What are your thoughts on battery swapping?
So I actually led a business that LG is doing in Korea that does battery swapping, but it's for two-wheeler applications. There's a standard, battery pack that goes into like an electric scooter, and it's being used more for delivery type of applications. So I do think there are certain fleet or certain business models where the swappable battery might make sense. But how widespread will it be? I think there's some challenges because you need a certain level of interoperability if you're going to, if the market's really going to take off. And I'm not sure, if we're going to easily get to that point. But I think for certain fleets or certain applications, if you're a delivery company operating in a certain area, having a swappable battery makes absolute sense. And if you take even what they're doing for two-wheel applications, and NIO's already doing this. And actually, I mean, if you go back 15 years, it was the Better Place, and so we've had some improvements on some of those ideas. But the technology is feasible. I think the difficulty is having everybody agree what the format is, and that I see as a very difficult.
Okay, so would this be physical format, so it would connect, or would it also go to the point of as you were saying earlier about chemistry difference within a cell? So you have a Chevy, you have a Ford. Okay, let's say they snap in the same way, but maybe they don't operate the same way.
No, it would have to be both, right? It would have to be the physical connection, but also the chemical properties have to be within a certain range. The reason for that two-wheeler application works very well is because they use cylindrical cells, which is a standard format, and so even for our customers, they're able to use our cells, but they're able to use someone else's cells as well. So I think the physical format at a minimum has to be interoperable. Chemistry, I mean, there has to be certain parameters where it would be interoperable, but it's a very challenging road for me to imagine.
Yeah.
So the two-wheel thing is really big in India. We were talking about India before, I know, for NIO. But my question about the swapping thing is like, all this energy is also going into making charging faster, and there's been a lot of success, at least at the product demo level, of speeding up charging time. And the whole idea for battery swapping was so that you don't have to wait for the battery to take an hour to charge or whatever it is. But if the charging time goes down, then the need for that, all of that, goes away, right? So I don't know where people are putting their money, but I'd put it on charging.
5-minute swap, 20-minute, 80% charge.
Well, it's going down though.
No, but I mean, it's so if it takes you 20 minutes to get 80% state of charge, which is basically where we're at with 800-volt charging now, right?
Now, yes.
Okay, but the physics are physics, so at some point that's going to play out, right?
Right.
So if you have a brand new battery or fully charged battery that you can get installed in your vehicle, at one of these swap stations in 5 minutes, then 20 is a long time.
20 is a long time, but it's not going to stay 20. Is what the industry is saying generally. That it's going to be it's 10 in some places now. So.
Listen, I think there's going to be a lot of different innovations and maybe even competing technologies to try to speed up consumer experience, right?
Right.
Whether it's swapping or rapid charging. Hard to know exactly what combination of these services are going to be, the winners in the market. But clearly, we're all trying to figure out how to make the charging experience shorter, for the consumer. And whether it's chemistry to try to do rapid charging, or we work with companies like NIO to figure out how to make it effective for the swappable batteries as well. Yeah, I don't. It's hard to know. We just trying to win in the
Hard to
market.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, look, we're going to have to wrap this segment up, but Bob, it's been very informative having you here. Believe me, it's great to get your insights into where this is all going and what's been going on.
Thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure. Really nice catching up with you guys, and look forward to hearing more from you guys. So
Yeah,
thank you.
right.
Yeah,
Thanks for
Thank
stopping
you
by.
very much. Yeah.
That's great.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
And now we get to the part of the show where Gary is got a question for us.
All right,
For
so-
you and I, Mike.
So all right, so I'm going to make this a la carte for you. You
A la
have a
carte.
choice. You have a
I'll
choice.
take the
You have-
easy one.
You have a choice between a birthday, a technology introduction, or a product introduction. And they all happened on February 27th. Not
Oh
the
my
same,
gosh.
not the same year though.
Not the same year though. Okay.
Okay.
What should we go with, Mike?
Let's. I think I'm more likely to recognize a product than.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
product it is.
all right. So this vehicle was introduced on February 27th, 2019, and it started something for this company. And I know you've driven this vehicle.
A new product that was introduced in 2019,
19. Wow.
and it started a new business.
It started. That's one way of looking at it. And it's sort of thematic
Yeah.
with the show.
Just
So
a
I'll-
child back
Oh,
then.
oh.
We're just a child back
Yeah,
then.
yeah. And it's thematic to the show, so that's got to have something to do with batteries.
Right. Right. Oh man. When did the
Model Y?
We should like play that music.
Yeah,
Right, right.
the Jeopardy music.
Right, right.
I can't remember when the Model Y came out.
Maybe you'd be better with the birthday.
Sure. All right. Switch it
This
up.
is a man who was born in 1934, and he is, let's say, automotive adjacent, but well known within the auto industry.
34.
So, like
I was just a
last week
child
when
back
we mentioned, Roger Penske's birthday, he is not automotive adjacent; he's automotive centric. Okay, so this
Yes,
guy is
yes.
automotive adjacent.
Again, would it be a battery guy? Wow. These are tough.
All right,
They're
so
tough.
we'll go for the technology. This was introduced in February
Two strikes,
27th,
Mike.
1911,
Oh, good.
Okay.
and then this is somewhat thematic.
Okay.
And actually, I asked you this question a few years ago, and
Oh,
you got it right.
Oh, really? Wow. Oh, it's on you, man.
Thanks, Gary.
It's a little
Yeah,
more
yeah.
pressure.
It's the first electric car.
It's a technology.
It's a
technology.
technology. So this is he's
Okay.
going to get it.
I
He's
think I
going to
got
get it. He's going to get it.
That's going to be Boss Kettering self-starter.
The electric
the electric
starter.
starter.
Oh, yeah. No more
Okay,
twisting the
so
hand.
Introduced in a 2012 Cadillac Model 30.
And the birthday and the
Birthday, the automotive adjacent, who's very important in the auto industry, is Ralph Nader.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's
Quite
nine-
adjacent.
He's
Yeah.
91 years old.
wow.
Still like going at it.
Oh, boy.
And the vehicle that was introduced on February 27th, 2019 was the Polestar 2.
Oh, my. Okay.
So it started basically, that was their first
Okay.
EV model. So there you
Wow.
have it.
Wow.
All right. So moving right along.
All right.
Well, let's
So-
start with
so-
an electric car company, as long as we're talking all this
Right.
Lucid.
Lucid. Yeah.
Peter Rawlinson, who was on the show,
Yes. Yeah, we had him.
Derek Jenkins, who is their
Uh-huh.
head of design.
Right. And he abruptly left the company on Monday, Peter Rawlinson.
Yeah.
And my read of the situation, love to get your guys' take on it, but I believe the board of directors informed Mr. Rawlinson that his services were pretty much not really needed any longer. The company's sales have gone nowhere in the last year. It's burning through cash. And even though Peter Rawlinson, he's brilliant. I mean, and the technology that he's gotten into the cars and the efficiency of it, and et cetera, that we all know, he's not a marketing and sales guy. And it seems to me that's what Lucid needs right now. somebody who can move the metals.
Okay, but don't you just hire a marketing and sales guy and you leave this guy who is like so highly knowledgeable in terms of electric vehicle engineering, who had the idea that they would come out and they would develop technology the likes of which nobody else still has, that
Right.
you'd keep that guy running the thing, and then you just hire this chief
Yeah.
marketing officer and say, hey, sell some of these expensive air
Yeah.
vehicles.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah.
But I my guess is the board, probably Rawlinson said, no, I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it the way I want to run it. And the board said, no, I think we need a sales guy. And he's not there. I don't believe he resigned voluntarily.
He's not spending time with the children in the garden.
No.
okay,
This
that's not really
this
it.
guy, number one, he was making a boatload of money. You don't
Yeah.
walk away from that. I mean, of course, you get to a point where money's not the object, but I don't think this
I
is-
don't know that.
me neither. But
Theoretically,
right.
yes.
But yeah, I don't think this is how Peter Rawlinson envisioned his career ending at Lucid.
But then no one ever does, right?
That's right.
No one expects the
Yes.
Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
Nobody
That's right.
Nobody expects the board to tell you no longer require. But you know, it's interesting that, as you say, Lucid really hasn't taken off as a company. Now there's the possibility that their SUV, the Gravity, will make some headway.
Mhm.
When we talked to him, and he's said this on other occasions, that his goal is to have an affordable electric vehicle that would
Right.
be smaller, you know, somewhere 40 grand ish or less. Obviously something that has not come to fruition. So you got to ask yourself, is this indicative of the larger situation that we're seeing in the auto industry vis-a-vis electric vehicles, or is this specific to Lucid not getting the same sort of traction that, let's say, a Rivian
Mhm.
is getting?
Yeah. That was my question too. Which, I mean, they're facing the same headwinds that all the companies are facing now, right? Is that why is this board less patient than perhaps
Well,
some of
look,
the other boards?
sales went nowhere in 2024.
Right.
They sold
Yeah.
the exact number of cars that they did the year before,
Yeah,
i.e.,
no growth.
zero progress.
Yeah.
And here we've just been talking that in the US alone, it's the EV segment's growing 10 to 15%.
Right.
So where's the growth? And I think that's what the board's looking for.
Well, you know, one of the things you got to ask yourselves, though, that is it possible that at the upper end of the market, which is the place that Lucid played
Right.
in EVs, is that pretty much at a saturation point? I mean, we're seeing Mercedes saying, hey, we've got a new V8. You know, I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
really?
Mercedes hasn't done that well with EVs
Right.
compared to BMW. BMW seems to be doing pretty good with its EVs.
But
Right.
BMW is more spread with electrification
Yeah,
versus.
Cadillac's making some real progress in the EV segment too.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I mean, think about it. The Cadillac Lyric, that alone sold as many cars as Lucid did.
Mhm.
So, and Lyric sales are growing, and Lucid sales are going nowhere.
But it's the holy grail is the cheap EV, right? The low cost entry level model that Tesla has been promising, and then it sounds like Lucid was trying to get to as well. So we're not there yet. We're not seeing those. You know, Mercedes-Benz just announced this week, I think, that they're working on a new solid state battery project. But again, that's going to be for a Mercedes-Benz. That's not going to be for
Right, but
a
that's
Pinto
still
or
that's still a
something.
science project that, you know, they got years to go.
Exactly.
You got like, okay,
Yeah,
if I'm a Mercedes dealer, it's like, yeah, thanks guys, but I've got
Meanwhile,
vehicles I need to sell.
Meanwhile,
Therein
right.
lies a problem.
But your
Right.
question's a good one. You know, are we hitting a saturation point with EVs in the upper
the high
end
end,
segment?
yeah.
Right.
yeah, that's a good question.
So what do you think?
I don't think we're there yet. I think there's still a lot of growth, and you know, in the area where Lucid's at, most of those buyers don't qualify for the $7,500 anyway. So Lucid will be largely unaffected by the subsidies going away for retail sales or leasing.
Mhm.
My guess is they've had a lot of manufacturing issues. They're probably struggling to build product. I don't know that for a fact, but it seems to me, I mean, they have a whole plant in Arizona,
Casa
right?
Grande.
Casa Grande, and I wonder if part of their problem has been they just are struggling to build these things. But the fact of the matter is, sales are dead in the water.
You know, a week or two ago, Rawlinson said an interesting thing. He was talking about the possibility of selling products to other OEMs. And, you know, one of the most clever things about Lucid is their motor technology. And remember when they first came out, they said, yeah, you can put it in overhead in an airplane. And man, those things are compact and powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they were able to sell those to
Well, remember,
other
Aston
OEMs,
Martin signed up to get their EV tech,
which is another company that's
which is another company. That's right. In deep financial trouble right now, and going through a retrenchment.
Mhm.
I mean, they're deliberately going to cut back on sales and production.
Yeah.
And you know, they've got what's the guy, Adrian Hallmark, who came from Bentley to run it. He's got his hands full, and they've essentially, you know, got Lawrence Stroll to step aside and let Adrian do his thing with the company.
And they've got technology from Mercedes, and they've got money from the Saudis, like Lucid does. You know, I mean, it's just, but again, it gets back to, okay, where's Aston Martin play? Up here.
Correct.
Right.
And maybe up here is...
Well, look, they spend too much money. They've been trying to do all these new models and things like that. And rather than concentrate on selling what they've got, which is what they're going to do now, and do model variants of existing things rather than trying to spend all this money on new stuff.
Yeah.
It
sounds like it was a surprise though to you guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a surprise to me because I mean, Peter Rawlinson was the face of the company.
Oh yeah, it's always dangerous to make the CEO the face of the company. Bad things can happen when that happens.
Yeah.
So next week, before next show, there's the possibility that the 25% tariffs on goods coming from Canada and Mexico may go into effect. And at a recent Automotive Press Association briefing, the Anderson Economic Group said that it would add between $4,000 and $10,000 per car assembled in North America.
Yeah, no, the 10 grand is full-size pickups and SUVs. In fact, Pat Anderson said it might even go above that.
So he said it could, a battery electric would be.
Look,
12.
So based on the people I've talked to this week, their read of the situation is what Trump really wants to do is renegotiate the USMCA free trade agreement early, maybe even this year. And so to get Canada and Mexico to cave and agree to do it this year, he's threatening these tariffs with the promise that if you do redo the USMCA, we can make these tariffs go away. And so my guess is he's not going to implement these tariffs next week. He's going to
say yesterday he was?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I know, but that's the art of the deal, Gary. You keep changing things, so there's total turmoil. My guess is he'll announce something that will be implemented later this year and phased in over time, and then probably throw out the idea of, hey, why don't we renegotiate this treaty right now?
Let's take care of it all at once.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, not that it's going to happen quickly, but I think it expires mid-2026 or something like that. So he wants to see this all happen faster.
So what would be the consequence if you're General Motors or Stellantis or Ford and you're making product on the other side of the border? I mean, what is this going to do for you?
You don't want to see this happen.
No.
I mean, and remember, it's going to be on parts and components too, not just on finished vehicles. So right off the bat, everything that you all your business, your costs are going up, and you're going to have to pass that on. You're not going to be able to eat $10,000 on a full size pickup. you're going to raise your prices. And what's going to happen? Sales are going to go down. And then what's going to happen? You're going to go, oh, we eliminate all overtime. Then it's going to be, oh, we don't need the second shift. And now you're going to start to see layoffs.
Well, and then we heard from Stellantis that they basically are putting a pause on their Brampton, Ontario plant where they were going to be building the Compass EV. And so on the one hand, you've got the issue of, okay, Compass, a affordable Jeep, but if you have a tariff on that, no longer affordable Jeep, and it's an EV, and if all of the incentives and build out of infrastructure goes away, suddenly demand for EVs is going to What do you see there?
Nothing but a big mess. Look, I think Farley came out and said, quote unquote, this is going to blow a hole in the industry if this goes through. And I think he's absolutely right. And I don't think anybody wants to see these tariffs. There's this mythology out there amongst Trump supporters that this is going to miraculously result in a lot more manufacturing jobs in the U.S. And I do agree, more manufacturing jobs will come to the U.S. But I also believe that prices are going to go up so much, sales are going to come down, it's going to be a wash. There's going to be no increase in jobs.
Yeah. The cost of tariffs get passed to the customer. It's just how they work, right? And guess what? But every speech before the election was, "Oh, tariffs! I love tariffs."
Right.
Yeah. So
Mike, you're dealing with battery technology all the time, as your magazine title indicates.
Indeed, it's a very imaginative title.
Yes. So, what is your assessment when you're out there talking to people in the industry about the acceptance of EVs and
yes,
it's growing, but it's still under 9% in the United States. We're seeing figures from around the world that it's going down. It's surprising. As LG is a Korean company, South Korean company, I looked in to see what their EV sales are. In 24, they were 6.1% of the market, down 3.9%. So even in, we're, so, are you getting any sense of what this is?
So the parent company has the North American Battery Show, the Battery Show India, Battery Show Europe, and they get conference speakers that are very, very deep into the weeds on this stuff. But to make it short, there are a few very specific reasons that make people not happy to buy an EV yet, right? And it's range, charging infrastructure. Will it work when it's cold? And will it catch fire? Those are the four biggest ones, right? And the industry players all say we're getting much better on all of these things. Now, infrastructure is another problem. We can that's in this country in particular. It's not happening. It wasn't happening fast enough under Biden, and Lord knows what's going to happen now. But in terms of the long-term prognosis of people getting electric cars is still very high, and more people are buying them every year. It's slowed, but it hasn't gone down, generally speaking, in this country. So they're still bullish on it. It just maybe not this week. Right? So,
But then we got to talk about Tesla, because the ACEA in Europe, that's the Automotive
European Automotive Association,
right, came out with sales from January. Tesla sales off the cliff. They just took a nosedive. If you look at the total European market, they were down 45%. If you look at just the EU proper, the European Union, they were down 50%. What do you think about that, Gary?
Well, I think there are a couple of things going on with that. For one thing, he's done some mid-cycle enhancements for his vehicles, but come on, they're pretty old. And if you're a European buyer of a vehicle, as you well know, the procedure there is not to go and buy a car off the lot. You order your vehicle, right? And you get it very particular to what you want and how you want it, right? So you have the situation where you can go to your local Renault dealer or go to your local Volkswagen dealer or Audi dealer, what have you, and order this very specifically, and it's going to be something that is going to be new, fresh you, right? And my sense of it is that the new and fresh part is being left out of Tesla's offerings in Europe. So given a choice, you might choose something else, especially, there BYD is in Europe the way they're not here. So again, there are more choices.
But I would think, Tesla's direct order, is fits in exactly what you're talking about.
Except
and you don't have to go to a dealer. You sit at home, you have a cup of coffee, you go through, 10 screens and you bought a car.
See, but my point is that all of these other companies are coming out with new products, new, right? Not
new sheet metal,
not refreshed, right?
Right.
Yeah. So if you're gonna be buying something, maybe you say, okay, I'll do that now. And then there's also, and I suspect that this is perhaps overblown, but I do suspect that there's some blowback.
Absolutely.
On Elon. I think it's
absolutely.
I think that's most of it myself. What do you think, Mike?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm phrasing this carefully. If you make the CEO and owner of a company the face of the brand, that can be very, very good. And it's been very, very good for Elon Musk, because he was not only the face of EVs in America, he was also the face of no more climate change. He wasn't as high as a Greta Thunberg, but he was on that list 10, 15 years ago. And now he's going into Germany and supporting very, very extreme parties, and he's doing it loudly and visibly, and they don't like that. They tend to not like Nazis in Germany, and that's what they feel is happening. So I think
Tesla sales in Germany were down 59%.
Yes, right. Overall, I think EV sales were down something like 6%, but for Tesla, it was...
No, in Europe, EV sales were actually up.
Oh, that's what it was, yeah.
So the total market was down, EVs were up, hybrids were up. Interesting, plug-in hybrids were not. And then, diesel and gas, no, they were way down too.
Okay, but look, there is rooting for the hometown team. You go to Germany and those people want to buy German vehicles in a way that's true. We are more adaptive in terms of we'll buy Korean vehicles, we'll buy Japanese vehicles, we'll buy European vehicles. It doesn't matter as much. Right. But in Germany, and you remember over the years, John, how many times did Cadillac try to show that they could be Autobahn running with the best of them, right? I mean, and it was they could prove it, but it never turned into sales, right? It just never happened. So we got to take some of that, yes, they do have the plant outside Berlin, but it's still an American company. And I think that if you're a German, you might say, I want to buy something.
There was a poll that came out this week too. I'm trying to remember who the poll came from, but it showed that 80% of the German public has a negative opinion of Elon Musk. And that's why I think we're seeing Tesla sales nosedive. I know that they had plants down for some retooling, and people have been waiting for the Model Y, and it's early in the quarter, and they always run up sales at the end of the quarter. But boy, these drop-offs are big.
Well, see, but I think that there's that you're correct in saying that EV sales were up, but EV sales, I believe, are 15% of the market in the EU right now.
Correct.
Right.
That's right.
And what they're supposed to be at in 2025 for the regulations in the EU is 20%. And if you look at the amount of growth between last year and this year, because that's what those numbers we're looking at, I mean, it's going to take them a while to get to 20%.
Oh yeah, no, they're way behind schedule, so to speak. And the automakers now are begging the EU for CO2 regulation relief,
right?
Because I think the collective figure for this year alone is 15 billion euros in fines / got to buy credits,
right?
But to a car company, whatever, it's still cash
money
going out the door,
That's
right?
That's right.
So. Yeah, it's you're right. They're behind where they thought they'd be.
So then the question I have then is, okay, what happens here? Okay, so yes, they were 8.9% EV sales last year. We seem to, people are ratcheting back the number of overall vehicles are going to be sold in this year, right? They're turning that back a bit.
I haven't seen any of the forecast houses back off on their forecast yet.
Just wait and see.
Yeah, just I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Okay. So that's going to happen. So then my question then becomes,
Right.
do EVs stay at 8.9% or do they go down some? I mean, because there was this whole notion that there was a lot of sales of EVs in December because people are like, we better buy one while we can still get that $7,500.
Correct.
That's right.
And that goes away. Then what happens?
Well, look, I mean, I'm not so the forecast houses have been saying this year they thought total sales in the U.S. would be 16.1, 16.2 million. But that doesn't take into account any of this tariff stuff that's being talked about. And guess what? Tariffs going on steel and aluminum anyway, right? Even though I said for cars and the like, it will probably be delayed and it's about the USMCA. That's not true when it comes to steel and aluminum. So
that's
right off the bat,
$250 to $800 per gas-powered vehicle and up to $2,500 on EVs, according to Anderson.
Yeah, right. So you've got that. It looks to me like inflation, based on what I'm reading, is raising its ugly head again. It's not abating, i.e., the Fed is not going to lower interest rates, i.e., there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to be able to qualify for a loan or simply can't afford one. And so I don't believe the 16.1, 16.2 sitting here right now as things are. I think it could probably drop. Now, the only thing is, I think what will happen here is similar to what's happening in Europe. Even though total sales in Europe are going down, EV sales are going up. And so even though we will probably not hit that 16.1, 16.2, I think we could see EVs actually gain share.
Okay, EV sales in Europe went up like this. Hybrid sales in Europe went up like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a huge difference.
Correct.
Yeah.
So to the extent that there is a greater opportunity for hybrids in this market, don't you think that?
Unquestionably.
So this could,
absolutely.
So how many people are going to basically say, hey, I don't need to buy an EV. I can buy a hybrid. I'll still be a good green citizen by doing that.
Oh, yeah. Right. I don't even think they want to be green. They're looking at that 40 MPG number and going, that's what I want.
Yeah, that and the again, I don't want to run out of charge and not have a place to charge it and to keep it safe. I'll be able to put gas in it. I mean, it's
So, Mike, what do you think about EREVs, extended range EVs? Do you think that's going to work? Is that going to get people to say, yeah, I'll give up my, Ram's coming out with an EREV. Are Ram buyers going to go, I don't need that Hemi or that Hurricane engine. I'm going with an EREV.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm surprised that it didn't work before. I mean, what was it? What was it? The
Volt.
The Volt. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. So
me.
I saw the Volt. This is before I even had my current job, and I thought that is so cool, because you talk about hybrids. It's not a hybrid. It's an electric car that runs on gas. Brilliant. And what happened? So it's beyond me why it didn't work. Why it didn't catch on.
Well, don't you think it's going to be an issue of what the MSRP is for that?
Oh, yes.
So somebody's going to go in the dealership and they're going to say, okay, I can get this with a Hemi, which I'm sure that they'll still be offering for the 1,500, right? I can get a Hemi. I can get the EREV. They still, without being a heavy duty, would be the Cummins diesel, right?
Yes,
they still offer that.
Still,
but I mean, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, you go in there and you get a Hemi, or I can get this EREV thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that becomes the question. So if you're a contractor or you have a lawn service or whatever, you might go for the EREV. But if you're just somebody who wants to own a truck,
maybe
there'll be some that will go for the EREV because it's cool, right?
Well, yeah.
But by
yeah.
and large, if you're going to have a Calvin sticker put in your backlight and it's going to be Calvin urinating on a Chevy logo, so you're going to buy the Hemi.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that the EREVs have the advantages that like the F-150 does, where it's a rolling generator too, right?
Right.
So you know, it's interesting. I watch the Super Bowl ads every year to see how they cover EVs, you know, and sometimes it's just, oh, well, it's just another car ad, you know, this is a high-end car that happens to be electric. And then some of them are, oh yeah, you can use it as a generator and shine a light on your little girl who's skating on a pond or whatever it was a couple of years ago. You know, but yeah, there are actual advantages to EVs that the EREV I think still has.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll bring a couple more in. I don't know.
Right. And you know, you raised a good point with the Cummins engine. Man, is that expensive? Boy, is that expensive. And if I hadn't thought of this until right now, but you know, an EREV has got really good towing capability. It's got terrific range. But you're right. If they price that below, nah, I'm dreaming. I mean, those diesel buyers, they want a diesel.
Right.
They,
right.
you know, yeah. Forget what I said.
All right. So, but well, before we
Okay.
leave Stellantis here, I
Okay.
mean, they didn't do very well financially, and they seem to be in some big trouble. I mean, what do we are we going to see some changes?
Well, I think we're starting to see change. They're talking about, oh, we're resetting and everything's going to be a whole lot better this year. Well, it better not get worse. I mean, because 2024 was a horrible, horrible year for them.
Yeah.
They need a new CEO as fast as they can find whoever that person's going to be. And that person has got to be a diplomat, because remember, you're dealing with the French, the Italians, the Americans. That person's got to be a technologist, because you've got all this software defined and everything else that's coming into cars. But they got to be able to move the metal. They got to figure out how they're going to get sales really cranked back to where they were. Because if you look at 2023, boy, did Stellantis look good financially.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
What happened?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And then the wheels came off the cart. And so, yeah, how long has Tavares been gone? A couple of months now, or and they haven't found the replacement. That tells me two things. They're being very careful about making sure they bring the right person in, and/or they just can't find that person.
See, when you were describing what this person needed to do, 2 out of 3 is Peter Rawlinson. The moving the metal part is
that's 2 out of 3.
Very diplomatic. I mean, the man is smooth. He understands all of that technology, but it's that third part.
No, you need somebody who really has got that gut feel for what you got to do in the marketplace, and gut feel becomes so important, because they're fed reams and reams of data, and then you got to have that blink moment where you go, that's where we're going. And obviously they haven't found that person yet.
So if they get a new CEO 2 years from now, will Chrysler exist?
Chrysler brand?
Yes.
Probably yes, but only as a minivan. So it'll be this minivan that's called the Chrysler minivan.
Right.
But it's sold in a multi-brand store.
All their stores are multi-brand now?
And all their stores are multi-brand now. But what I'm saying is, you don't need this separate marketing organization called Chrysler. You just need the stores that happen to sell a minivan that's called the Chrysler minivan. And don't try to call it the Dodge minivan or the Ram minivan. No, it's the Chrysler minivan. But that's all you need. You don't need this whole organization called the Chrysler Brand Group doing it.
Well, if back to your question about finding a new CEO, I wonder what the hang up is, if it is indeed that nobody out there really wants the job. I mean, because 23 was a good year, 24 was a bad year, but you can't call Stellantis a sinking ship, right? It's
well, if things keep going, they're a sinking ship. Keep going like they're going.
Yeah.
Look, there's plenty of people, I'm sure, who have called their favorite headhunter and said, "Throw my name in the ring." I'm sure they've evaluated quite a few people, probably quite a few good people. But so far, unless they're making a decision right now as we speak, so far the board hasn't found the right person.
Yeah.
And I suppose that the risky part of all of this is for several reasons, not the least of which is market acceptance, that you want somebody who is going to be able to stay there for a while, right?
Correct.
Mhm.
Not
Mhm.
come in for a couple of years and
Yeah, I mean,
right.
ideally, you get somebody in their early 50s,
Yeah.
something like that, that's got great sales experience, understands technology, knows what it takes to get manufacturing done. I mean, you need this sort of magic CEO who's got the experience to do that.
magic is the key word.
Right.
Right.
And what I said is also got to be a diplomat, because you've got to deal with 3 different cultures: French, Italian, American.
No, you don't. You're the boss.
They need to deal with you.
I know, but they got to be raring to go to work for you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, look, we're probably gonna. I know we got more topics we could talk about, but I think we've burned through our hour here, and so
Mm.
why don't we wrap it up? Mike, thanks so much for
Oh,
coming on.
such
the
a
show.
joy. Thanks so much.
So
That's a
battery
good chat.
technology.
Yes. yes.
I want to say magazine, but
Well, this is
magazine
batterytechonline.com.
there
is
you
what
go.
we're
Well,
online.
good.
So yeah.
Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, it's a
really good.
pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Gary, great, good show.
Yeah.
Do it next week.
Thanks to all of you for having tuned in.